серии экономической кибернетики.
In the Economic Cybernetics series, circumstances forced me to release this video ahead of time. This video touches on the issue of the institution of a central bank, although this video is about one of the methods of economic cybernetics. Therefore, anyone who wants to know why the central bank acquired such properties that are not typical for a commercial bank, and for a bank in general, wait for a video about this or read the book Beyond the Borders of Capital.
С 1971 года Центральный банк из простого, самого большого коммерческого банка, у которого были самые большие запасы.
Since 1971, the central bank has gone from being simply the largest commercial bank with the largest gold reserves to becoming a lender of last resort. Now gold has been replaced by credit and loan refinancing. Now the accounting records of the central bank's assets do not match its real assets. As long as he does not throw money into the economy through credit, his assets have no impact on the economy. Because his assets are all material production. Expanding production increases assets. Reduced output reduces central bank assets. This is confirmed by daily practice, as well as recommendations of the Bank for International Settlements. 180 central banks adhere to these recommendations.
И номер 68 от 2023 года указывают, что Центральный банк может допускать превышение.
Bulletin number 71 of 2013 and number 68 of 2023 indicate that the central bank may allow the loan issued to exceed its accounting assets, and its losses do not in any way affect the central bank's ongoing lending activities. The robbery of the century in February 2022 of the Russian Central Bank in the amount of 320 billion euros did not prevent it from issuing a loan during the years 22 to 23 in the amount of 192.4 trillion rubles, which exceeded its assets by 7.3 times. This is the essence of the lender of last resort. Neither its accounting assets nor its losses have any impact on its efforts to maintain the stability of the country's monetary system. A significant limitation is associated with the size of real assets created in production. It is the amount of material resources created in the past period or in the current that determines the amount of the loan and loan refinancing.
Превышение кредита над этой величиной запускает инфляционный процесс в той отрасли, куда направляется необоснованный кредит.
The excess of the loan over this value triggers an inflationary process in the industry where the unjustified loan is directed. Considering the turnover of credit, and in essence the capital that is channeled into the economy, I will show that loan refinancing and the capabilities of the lender of last resort can provide a multiple increase in the demand of end consumers, individuals, municipalities or regional authorities. Let's move on to consider turnover. And first, let's see how we can increase consumption. So, we have resources created in the past period or in the current period. At the same time, we know that the regions have limited financial resources. At the same time, they want and need to have a modern school, university, theater, stadium, road, equipped with a swimming pool, sports ground, assembly hall and other facilities, have public transport and a new housing and communal services system, etc.
Стоит 1 миллиард 200 миллионов рублей, в то время как в бюджете всего, допустим, 200 миллионов рублей. Но регион все равно заказывает строительство школы. Центральный банк выдает...
The school at current prices costs 1,200 million rubles, while the regional budget is only 200 million rubles. But the region still orders the construction of a school. The central bank issues a loan against the assets of the general contractor to a commercial bank, and the commercial bank issues a loan to the general contractor. This is the first loan. The money from the first loan is distributed among contractors and subcontractors in exchange for raw materials, energy, necessary equipment, etc. This money will remain in the sphere of productive consumption, with the exception of wages and taxes. But we will leave this circumstance aside for now, since wages range from 4 to 12% of costs in modern corporations. Now we, the general contractor, have a school, the costs of which amounted to 1 billion rubles and, according to the law, 20% value-added tax is charged on them, 200 million rubles on the price. That is, the current price, as was said earlier, is 1,200 million rubles.
И налогу на прибыль. Ну и иметь собственную прибыль. Итак, цена школы равна 1,2 миллиарда рублей. В бюджете находится...
By the way, this money is enough for the general contractor to pay off the first loan, interest on the loan, value-added tax and income tax, and make a profit. And so the price of the school is 1.2 billion rubles. In our example, the budget contains 200 million rubles. Then the second loan that the region must take will be 1 billion rubles to buy the school. This is the main point. The money from the second loan is used to repay the first loan, change the borrower and fix profits for all participants in the capital turnover. Therefore, the money of the second loan appears on the consumer market for an instant and disappears again in the central bank. But the money that will appear in the future to repay the second loan, appearing in the hands of consumers in parts in the form of income, taxes to the regional budget, wages, for a long time, is immediately sent again to the central bank. Because, as we see, all the money from the second loan, both current and future, is extra money in the circulation of money and goods.
1 миллиарду 200 миллионов рублей. Масса наличных денег в обороте также равна 1 миллиарду 200 миллионам рублей. 1 миллиард рублей у подрядчиков, субподрядчиков и 200 миллионов рублей у генерального.
Balance of the shown turnover. The commodity weight in value terms is equal to 1,200 million rubles. The amount of cash in circulation is also equal to 1,200 million rubles. 1 billion for contractors and subcontractors and 200 million for the general contractor. The debt on the first loan when repaid by the builder is zero. The region's debt under the second loan is 1 billion rubles. However, there is no guarantee that this second loan will be repaid. This has already happened twice, when the region's debts were simply written off. Because this money does not in any way affect the overall turnover of capital. They put pressure on the stability of the banking system. Therefore, the central bank uses the second loan exclusively to refinance the first loan, to complete the turnover of capital in which the products were produced and which were consumed by the final consumer.
Увеличить потребление в действующих ценах и в существующей величине доходов. Как это можно реализовать? Все, что мы сейчас рассмотрим,
Thus, reducing the amount of the second loan for consumers does not in any way affect capital turnover or inflation, but allows expanding and increasing consumption in current prices and in the existing amount of income. How can this be implemented? Everything that we will consider now not only does not contradict the current legislation, but also exactly complies with it. The whole process is organized by these listed legislative acts. And about the central bank, and about the State Development Corporation, and about the circulation of securities, and about the organization of project financing. The central bank, in order to maintain the stability of the monetary system, the turnover of capital, which is interrupted by the first loan, that is, during the production of an expensive product that neither society nor the majority of the country's population can afford, issues bonds in the amount of the first loan.
Тогда у региона, как в нашем примере, хватает денег 200 миллионов рублей, плюс облигации на сумму 1 миллиард рублей, чтобы рассчитаться за школу.
That is, in the amount of 1 billion rubles, and transfers them to the region through the instrument of trust management and the trustee of the State Development Corporation VEB.RF. Then the region, as in our example, has enough money of 200 million rubles plus bonds in the amount of 1 billion rubles to pay for the school. Here, as in the first case, bonds and money appear only to offset payments and record the income of all participants in capital circulation. In this case, the turnover looks like this. The commodity weight in value terms is 1.2 billion rubles. The money supply is equal to 1.2 billion rubles. 1 billion rubles is the amount of the first loan and 200 million rubles is budget money. Bonds worth 1 billion rubles and budget money 200 million rubles serve as a tool for refinancing the first loan.
Погашение первого кредита будут изъяты из оборота. Они появляются на мгновение, как и в случае со вторым кредитом. Это лишние деньги, в какой бы форме они не были представлены в обороте.
At the same time, the bonds, having offset payments between the region, the general contractor, the commercial bank, the central bank to repay the first loan, will be withdrawn from circulation. They appear momentarily as in the case of the second loan. This is extra money in whatever form it is presented in circulation. In this case, the commodity supply and the money supply will be equal, demonstrating a more stable financial system compared to the current situation, when a second loan has to burden consumption. The school example demonstrates municipal or regional expanded consumption increased by 6 times. At the same time, individual projects for which there is a complete understanding of the available resources reflected in the feasibility study or other project documentation do not need a method of economic cybernetics such as a dynamic model of the input balance. The method of accelerated capital turnover is sufficient.
Ее расчеты обеспечат полный охват всех межотраслевых материальных и профессиональных ресурсов, необходимых для достижения.
But, for example, for regional development programs or federal development programs or for national projects, the use of a dynamic model of intersectoral balance is necessary and mandatory. Its calculations will ensure full coverage of all intersectoral material and professional resources necessary to achieve the stated development goals. And only then, without spinning the inflation flywheel, as is happening now, when 192.4 trillion rubles have been pumped into the economy in 2 years without calculations, can the method of accelerated capital turnover be applied.
Переселение из ветхого жилья или предоставление жилья детям-сиротам. Но еще в рамках экономической кибернетики я покажу,
in addition to expanding demand and increasing the well-being of society, as shown in the construction of a school, it is also possible to increase the well-being of individual citizens within the framework of government programs for supporting young professionals and zoning labor resources, supporting young families or relocating from dilapidated housing, or providing housing for orphans. But also within the framework of economic cybernetics, I will show how these methods make it possible to carry out programs of industrialization, competitiveness, and infrastructural development. So, industrialization program in the paradigm of economic cybernetics. What is its essence?
Мы можем обеспечить гарантированный сбыт продукции в текущих ценах. При этом для ускорения процесса мы обеспечиваем его первым кредитом.
Using a dynamic model of intersectoral balance, we can calculate material and professional resources throughout the entire life cycle of a national project and thus have a balance of supply and demand for the entire set of enterprises participating in the national project, i.e., in other words, guaranteed sales of products at current prices. At the same time, to speed up the process, we provide him with the first loan, since the risks in balancing supply and demand are reduced to zero. In essence, this is an investment loan for those corporations that quickly need to create new modern production. We also provide them with the opportunity to refinance the first loan through special central bank bonds. By the way, these central bank bonds are excluded from the circulation of securities on the market.
Строится в Ивановской области. Машиностроительной корпорации «Профессионал». Плановые инвестиции корпорации составляют 10 миллиардов рублей. Тогда прямые...
These targeted bonds are issued exclusively for refinancing loans under government-approved programs and projects. This is what turnover looks like using a specific example of the construction of a road construction equipment plant, which is being built in the Ivanova region by the Professional Machine Building Corporation. The corporation's planned investments amount to 10 billion rubles. Then the direct production costs of the general contractor and, accordingly, the finished facility at current prices will be equal to 11.3 billion rubles, of which 1 billion is the wage fund, 300 million rubles are taxes on the wage fund and 10 billion rubles are the purchase of raw materials, supplies, energy and equipment from contractors and subcontractors.
Это 4,5% годовых. Конечно, коммерческий банк в накладе не остается и накручивает также и свои 4,5%.
The first loan that the central bank issues to a commercial bank against the assets of a machine building corporation is carried out within the framework of ex-year insurance, since the products have export potential and are planned to be sold not only on the domestic market. This is 4.5% per annum. Of course, the commercial bank does not lose money and also increases its 4.5%. Therefore, the loan costs the borrower at 9% per annum, which also corresponds to the orders and letters of the central bank on the provision of long-term loans. Thus, the price of the object at current prices will be 13,560 million rubles, taking into account the accrued value added tax.
260 миллионов рублей вместо 13,6 миллиарда рублей полных инвестиций. Все расчеты, которые я здесь показываю,
If we use central bank bonds to refinance the first loan, then the machine building corporation must invest only 2,260 million rubles instead of 13.6 billion rubles of total investments to complete the turnover and pay all participants in the project. All calculations are based on the current structure of the tax base. At the same time, as can be seen from this turnover, not a penny of budget funds is involved here. The state, only in its public interests, ensures the rapid attraction of investment funds in sectoral development.
В противном случае мы столкнемся с нехваткой ресурсов и, как следствие, с разбалансировкой всего национального проекта по времени ввода мощностей.
Once again, I want to emphasize that rapid sectoral development cannot be achieved without calculations based on a dynamic model of the interindustry balance. Otherwise, we will be faced with a lack of resources and, as a consequence, an imbalance of the entire national project in terms of the time of commissioning of capacities, a lack of trained personnel, etc. The balance of resources, as well as the synchronization of the commissioning of capacities throughout the life cycle of a national project, are easily feasible using a dynamic model of intersectoral balance.
Перемещение любых материальных объектов на любые расстояния, в любую точку планеты. Вот как выглядит оборот капитала для участника государственной программы.
The program for increasing competitiveness in the paradigm of economic cybernetics is generally a formidable weapon. It's the same as if the government had controlled thermonuclear fusion or a way to instantly move any material objects over any distance to any point on the planet. This is what capital turnover looks like for a participant in the state program to increase competitiveness. Let's show this using the example of the Russian engineering company UMG Group. If we apply the method of accelerated capital turnover and provide the first loan for direct production costs or, in other words, for the cost of production, then refinancing the first loan with special bonds of the central bank, through the trust management control mechanism of the VEB.RF Corporation, allows the company to receive excess profits when selling its products and displace any foreign competitors, be it Chinese or Turkish.
Снижению себестоимости, совершенствованию качества изделий, превосходящих мировые аналоги. Также по инновационному развитию всего производственного процесса и по увеличению...
At the same time, the agreement for such a company will include strict conditions for the following indicators: increasing production volumes, reducing costs, improving the quality of products, superior to world analogs, also for the innovative development of the entire production process and increasing the wage fund. As we see in the example of UMG, with income from product sales of 1.9 billion rubles, profit can amount to 1.7 billion rubles, only if, at current prices, the enterprise can increase the volume of production and sales of its products, which are stipulated by the agreement. And here is what the production and sale of MC-21 airliners looks like. If the aircraft manufacturer receives full income of 3.28 billion rubles, it can sell them to Russian air carriers at a price of 550 million rubles, with the condition that the air carriers will reduce their prices for transportation within the country.
А для расширения предложения, то есть строительства самолетов, мы можем опять же при строительстве новых мощностей применить программу индустриализации экономической кибернетики.
At these prices, Aeroflot will order not 100, but 1,000 aircraft. And to expand supply, we can again apply the program of industrialization of economic cybernetics when building new capacities. Using the example of the state program Eastern Test Site, let's demonstrate the program of infrastructural development in the logic of economic cybernetics. With 894 billion rubles of public money allocated for this program, and with the availability of material resources, it is possible to attract private investment in the form of a first loan in the amount of 4.5 trillion rubles. As we see in economic cybernetics, investments are limited solely by the availability of material and professional resources. Therefore, the fundamental solution to the problems of the Eastern Polygon lies in the separation of container transportation and general cargo. To effectively differentiate traffic, it is necessary to use the most modern technology of magnetic levitation highways for container transportation at speeds of 450 to 500 kilometers per hour.
Разрабатывают более 60 российских компаний и научных организаций, в том числе и Росатом. Стоимость проекта 7,6 триллионов рублей. Но это не составляет.
The project is being developed by more than 60 Russian companies and scientific organizations, including Rosatom. The cost of the project is 7.6 trillion rubles. In this case, not a single ruble of budget funds will be required. Let's summarize. Economic cybernetics and its methods multiply the demand of the population and society represented by regional governments without inflation at current prices and current incomes. That is, the high rates of economic development in economic cybernetics do not depend on global conditions, but depend exclusively on the growth of the well-being of people and society. There is no need to spend budget money. In economic cybernetics, through its methods, which are the dynamic model method and the method of accelerated capital turnover within the framework of 4 development programs, private initiative is implemented in the public interest with the greatest benefit. In this case, public interest is most effectively realized through private initiative.